here's the thing. The biggest difference to me, well, there's two of them. One is the risk and one are the fees. I'll talk about the fees. When you go into a fixed index annuity and it's a core product, there are no fees to go in and there's no management fees. Okay. So when you compare that to a variable annuity, I'm looking at a chart here and, you have a mortality and expense charge typically around 1.25% per year. You have administrative fees built in, typically around 1.4% per year. You have investment management fees that can range from a quarter point, 25 basis points, all the way up to 2%. I mean, you can go on and on and on. But if you're looking at that, I mean, you're getting into a fee-based product of anywhere from 2 to 4% before you make any earnings on your money. So I don't know about you, David. I'm not a big fan of fees in retirement. I try to eliminate fees. And to me, what is the purpose of that fee? Well, if the fees to get a higher growth or higher, accumulation, then there's other vehicles that are probably better for you in retirement than a variable annuity. If you're looking for conservative growth with no fees, that's where the index annuities, to me, in my mind, serve a better purpose.
And I've always thought this, right? Because of my math mind. But when you do the numbers don't lie. Okay. And when you break the variable annuity down, okay, you might as well just be in the stock market if you're in retirement. You might as well be in the stock market, because if you're invested in a index fund or a mutual fund, you at least don't have to pay a management fee, or you don't have to pay mortality expense or a rider or whatever it is. The variable annuity is meant for just growth, tax deferred. And what that means is the easiest way for anyone to understand about what a variable annuity is for is if you're about 20 to 40 years old and you've maxed out your 401k or IRAs. That is pretty much the only reason you should ever go into a variable annuity. Now, people say, well, what happens if you want to do that down the road? Well, I mean, if you want to do that down the road, it's fine. You can transition it. It's always meant to transition somewhere else. But with the fee, the percentage of fee not changing and staying the same, a fee when you have a smaller amount of money when you're starting compared to what you have in 20 years, it's a lot different, right? That's why variable annuities work that way. Is when they can charge those fees when you have high growth on a lower amount of assets. When you get to the $300,000 to $1 million, okay, and you have let's just say an average of 2% fee, and you're paying $20,000 a year, right, for a contract when you could literally be invested in the same thing in the stock market, it just makes no sense. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? Or you could be able to actually transition that into a fixed index and still gain with the market link gains, or turn it into income. Okay. And again, variable annuities will never have better income than other annuities do. That's just not how they work. Variable annuities are meant for growth, period. Okay. That growth is accumulated over the lifetime of that annuity. Now, again, like I said, they do have high fees. Those fees could be outweighed. I will give the benefit of the doubt to the variable annuity if you're young and you're invested in a variable annuity. But down the road, there is no reason that you should still be in a variable annuity.
Let me ask you, David, then, because we run into it quite a bit. People come into us and they have variable annuities. Maybe they took them out when they're 30, 40 years old and they're coming into retirement. Like, what do I do with this? Did they have to cash it out? I mean, how do they even move that variable annuity? I mean,
you need to get out any way you can, Steve. No.
I was waiting for you to throw out those magic numbers for us.
Listen.
1035.
I don't want to be too nerdy about it. I don't want to get people confused, but the bottom line is this. If you have a variable annuity at all right, you go to your statement. I want you to go home and I want you to look at your statement and I want you to go to the top. And if it says variable annuity or a type of annuity or, any type of annuity, you need to meet us in the first place. But especially if it's a variable annuity, you need to sit down and go over it. Okay. And people might say, well, I looked over it. There's not many fees in there. Yes, there is.
But David, what about the client? I mean, let's talk about this for a second. What about that client that came to us and said, hey, I like my variable annuity. I'm, even after the fees, I made, 12% last year.
Well, I mean, then again, though, if you say that, Steve, you made 12%, okay, but then how much did you actually lose? Right? So he made 12%, but guess what? The next year, the market goes down. The market just dropped 10%. He's probably square one again, Steve. And he still gets feed. So you tell me that I got to still pay a company to lose me money?
Well, the neat thing is, we've had 12% returns and the market's up with no fees and no risk and locking in their money. So again, going back to the
Yeah,
pros and cons.
it doesn't make any sense. And I think the bottom line is in retirement, you're looking more short term, Steve. Period. I mean,
Well, I think too, David, as you and I both know, when you look at the value of plugging a zero in where the negatives are hitting these variable annuities, removing the fees, and then giving them index linked opportunities where they can get, 7, 8, 9, upwards of 10, 12% when the market does well with no risk. You lock the money in. To me, in retirement, it's a no brainer. Why would you go to variable? Why would you have a variable with all that stuff that could affect your retirement negatively when you could go into an index annuity and it's really all positive, because if it goes down and you get a zero, that's not a bad thing.